Look at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel. Look at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what...
What's up, guys? Emperor John Kill 3D Gaming here, and long awaited, I get to finally talk about Mass Effect 3. And this is after doing a full trilogy run 2 times, and now playing Mass Effect 3 one more time. So basically, I've gone through this trilogy close to about 3 times with different scenarios and different effects from Mass Effect 1 and 2, no pun intended. But Mass Effect 3, one of the best / controversial games in gaming history, because I can see why this game has every right to be criticized, but everything else about the game does kind of outweigh the old criticism. Because if a lot of people don't remember, Mass Effect 3 back in 2012 was criticized heavily for its ending due to it not being what people wanted and going against apparently what the developers said was going to, along with fans going into the lore looking for reasons why they got the ending. You know, even the extended cut ending didn't mitigate a lot of the criticisms. But that is then. That was back in 2012. How does it hold up now? Where does Mass Effect 3 still stand among the rest of the trilogy? Now, it's still my favorite out of the trilogy. Besides, it's hard between this and Mass Effect 2, because Mass Effect 3 is a natural step forward for the series. Everything was leading to this big war with the Reapers. You know, we went from a game where we went from the first game where it's nothing but exploring the galaxy, you know, with a very straightforward story, but it's really bringing the relationships of the characters, you know, bringing you closer to these characters, you being introduced to the world, to the galaxy, to the many different planets, to the different species. Mass Effect 2, a very espionage organization level based game where you're working for basically a secret organization, and you do more espionage work and more recruitment. Basically, it's another game where they want you to meet these new characters, grow attached to them, because that game, if you make some poor decisions or not do everything you're supposed to, you will suffer that ending very badly. But then we jumped into Mass Effect 3, which is the invasion of the Reapers, which is a war. This is a war game through and through. You know, some of the mechanics were changed to meet this new type of scenario. You know, but what really makes this game still really good to me, and I still like the story despite its ending, is the characters in this game again hold the game together. But the story this time around, it's more urgent. The stakes are higher than the first 2 games. Here you really do feel the weight of, if you fail, all of humanity and all its inhabitants and all of the galaxy's inhabitants will die to this threat. And the Reapers being one of the most interesting enemies I have fought in any video game. I mean, yes, this is a game from 2012 remastered for the modern era, but again, the Reapers is a unique enemy faction. I mean, every enemy faction in the Mass Effect games is interesting, but the Reapers, since the first game, have had an impending, the feeling of impending doom, that almost anything you do could backfire or could fall in your favor. Character deaths. Everything about the Mass Effect games is unpredictable. Even when you play them over again, doing missions differently, seeing different dialogues. Mass Effect 3 being it's out of the second one and the third one, I don't know which one is really the longest. If you know what you're doing, you can blitz both of them, But both games, especially this one, this is up to you. This game is up to you whether you can go out there and take your time to build an army to defeat the Reapers, because that's what this game really sets you on the path of. Gathering war assets, gathering new and old companions, and any surviving companions from the second game to help you in your current fight with this enemy faction. Coming across characters that you have encountered all the way back from Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, and some of the scenarios in Mass Effect 3 play out differently if you don't do specific characters' missions, if there's certain loyalties are not toward you, or if you flat out be a dick to certain characters. This game has had 3 different encounters I've had with either Ashley, the Prothean Javik, you know, different missions pop up, different viewpoints of how the characters feel about you. I mean, you could do, let's say in the first game, for example, I romanced Ashley, we had a good ride, and then in the second game, it was all fine and dandy. I didn't destroy anything, I didn't ruin it. But then the romance option ended up evolving with Jack. But then when you get to Mass Effect 3, certain options that you have done in the second game come into play here, especially with, once again, my favorite feature of these Mass Effect games is crossing your character over. You know, you really feel attached to your character. You know, you can look like the standard femme shep or male shep, but it feels better when you're really honing yourself, creating yourself in this, basically you living through this character Shepard is an interpretation of whoever you see yourself as in this story, which is also really cool. It's like it grips you from both. If you're playing as a standard Shepard, which yes, you can play as him, and his story alone was very compelling. I mean, it wouldn't be if he wouldn't be who he was. Then, on top of that, when this game being a war game, they had to revamp a whole lot, and this will be a point of contention, what I can tell, with fans. And should this game have remained feeling like the first two? Because the first one, I said the combat wasn't all that great, but the combat was suitable for the game that it needed to be. Mass Effect 2 was a cross between an RPG leaning into more of the action. Now this one leans more into the action, and I can see why, yes, some people might not want that. But in a game like this, where in Mass Effect 3, this one feels, the combat feels like it's a natural evolution. The gameplay has naturally evolved. You know, you're not going to be doing a lot of RPG-based elements when it comes to exploration because there's a galactic-wide war going on. But for what they do here, you still feel good when you level up your character. You still feel powerful depending on what class you are. Like me personally, I chose to be an assault class. I like to be the soldier, and this made the game feel like a huge breeze for me, apparent to somebody playing like as a vanguard or sentinel, which requires different skills depending on the different play style you have, because there is an option. I give it that. This game, Mass Effect 3, if you start a new game, has an option that, do you want to play this like an RPG, an action RPG, or an action game? And that is good quality of life options for you. That is good replayability, because clearly if I'm going already 3 runs of this trilogy, that lets you know that this is a damn good trilogy. But there are things about it that I can admit. There are things about this game that I personally don't like that might be different from how other fans view it. Now, personally for me, I feel that the leveling up system should have been kept the way it was in Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2, the leveling up wasn't very basic, where here it's just traditional. You have an ability, you have different branches with that ability, and it'll just make that particular ability stronger. Now don't get me wrong, the core abilities are here. Your favorite ones are here. Like my personal favorite ones that I've played with the Assault class throughout the trilogy is here. But I felt that this game should have went further with that. Like, if it's a war game, include more environmental destruction, and use more vehicles, use more weaponry, because you don't have the exploration vehicle or levels that you did from the first two games, which is something I really liked. That was brought back later in Andromeda, but everyone knows what happened with Andromeda, so we're not going to focus on that here. And this time with the Normandy, this time you don't have to worry about upgrading the ship. All you have to really do, it's more so your main central hub. I mean, just like the Citadel remains the central hub, which the Citadel is, I don't know if it feels the same size or expanded compared to the second one. They both feel the same size to me, just different areas you go to and different ways of getting to familiar locations. But it still looks great. The Citadel, I liked how they changed the rendition of from 1 to 2 to 3. And with the certain differences in the Normandy, but this time with different rooms you can go into, you know, checking your different assets, going to the workbench at the bottom, which is another thing I like. I do like being able to customize my weapon, adding attachments this time, adding different perks and abilities. See, there's a lot of good things, like even though you have to strip, they did strip a lot of things back from the first two games, but what they knew works here. I do like even the way they set up the enemy life bar. Now this is just a personal thing I like. You get to see how the enemy's life drops, therefore you can detect to see how long it takes to kill one of them. And the galaxy map this time is much easier to navigate. You can see what system you need to get to, you can see the amount of missions that are there, you can see the enemy presence that's there. Now this time you're not using probes to collect resources. You can just collect resources or war credits or war assets just by doing the missions, and you get rewarded for doing whatever mission, both side, main, companion, DLCs, which is another thing I want to talk about. This one also fixes the problems that people might have had. Not saying it fixes the ending, but it makes this game feel more coherent, because when I originally played Mass Effect 3 back on the PS3 and I didn't have the DLCs, yes, it was incoherent. But what this Legendary Collection has done so far is each game that has had expansions and DLC, they tie it into the story. You don't know if it's the DLC unless you have played it in the past. But you could be doing, let's say you want to go and take a break from doing your major priorities, and you want to do some of your relationship priorities, or you want to do some of your side missions. You could very well bump into one of these DLC quests. Now that's the thing. The good thing is they don't force the story ahead, as in making you much step closer to that ending that prevents you from doing certain missions that you want to go back and do. That's the good thing. Now that is what they changed from, even though it's funny how everything in this game is a lot more fast-paced, and the enemy threat in the galaxy, because if you try to scan for certain items in space, you could hone in and call the Reapers, and once one ship catches you, it's an instant TKO. But here, there's really no time limit that you feel that you have to complete this certain mission at this certain point or you won't be able to do it again. You just need to know what's the major missions that progress the story forward, and what's the ones that you can do in the meantime to you could cause different effects to the story, which is, again, I like. You know, side missions can affect the course of the main story. Companion missions can affect dialogue sequences and how characters interact with you in these main missions. You know, hell, for example, let's go back to the topic that I made with Ashley. Ashley was the first love romance from the first game for me. The second game was Jack. So far these two haven't had an encounter, and I didn't break it off with Ashley. It's just that something happens at the Citadel, you know, a coup, if you will, with Cerberus and one of the council members. Now, I thought, since my Paragon level was high, I could talk her out of it, because the first two times I was able to talk her out of trying to shoot me. That's what I thought I could do here. But little things you need to pay attention to in the dialogue, because I could think I'm making the right decision, but even if I made that decision, let's say if I didn't pull the trigger to kill a character, one of your loyal companions who would want to defend you will pull the trigger for you. And that's the effect that this game has with these characters. You know, somebody who wants to shoot you, that a crew member, for example, if the crew member wants to shoot you, but this other crew member that you're loyal to, if they both have loyalties to you, but if one wants to shoot you because they can't trust you, and even if you lower your weapon to prove who you are and to prove that you're not this person or the way they view you as, boom, your other companion can blast her. Because that is what happened here. Thinking I can talk Ashley down from blasting me and getting her to see reason, but since, again, Mass Effect 2 history, she assumes that I'm still Cerberus, and she has a die-hard prejudice against Cerberus and other alien races, and that's her character trait. And who was the one to pull the trigger if not me? Basically, who became my best friend in this whole trilogy, and that is Garrus. Garrus is, all I gotta say is, he is video games, like he is your homeboy in any video game. Every video game needs a Garrus, but yes, decisions between squad mates can cost characters their lives. And you know what I gotta say? It's interesting. It makes me want to go back and do more. Because, yes, I could go through and look at walkthroughs. I could see, you know, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I get this? How do I make this person live? But I feel doing that kind of ruins the overall, what's the word I'm looking for? The anticipation that you don't know what's coming. I'd rather be in the unknown and have the story feel unpredictable, because that's what this game does, and what the series does as a whole is make it unpredictable. Now, my final thing is on the ending when it comes to it being a 3-choice ending. Yes, it is vastly different from Mass Effect 1 and 2, where Mass Effect 1 and 2, your actions throughout the game will determine the ending you receive. And that is great. But I also look at it back then in 2012, even games that would say something like this would always have ulterior options. I mean, think about it. Dragon Age had similar things, but I didn't see no one trash Dragon Age because it's medieval Mass Effect. That's what it is to me. And I played those games in full, and I didn't see no one complain really much about those, but they did have the same problems as Mass Effect. I mean, the Dragon Age trilogy has just as much, if not more, problems than the Mass Effect trilogy. But Dragon Age really only has one bad game under the belt, and that's Part 2, and Inquisition is a step forward in the series where you have 2 bangers, basically Mass Effect 1 and 2, and Mass Effect 3, a banger all the way up to, yes, that ending. But I feel that that ending should not destroy my overall. See, that's what the fans of the game did. They allowed one ending to destroy all the emotion they built up. They allowed it to destroy all the fun they had and all the gameplay moments and every moment that led them to this. They just allowed one simple thing to destroy it, which I think is just stupid, dumb, and not really a good argument to criticize the game for. But overall, Mass Effect 3, it's still a solid 8. I like it. I still like it just as much as I did before. It still pales behind 2, but that's okay. The Mass Effect Legendary Collection as a whole is great value for your money, and if you're a first-time person getting into the series, I highly recommend it. As a collection, it's a 10 out of 10. Be sure to like, subscribe, favorite, and I'm going to catch you all in the next video or next live stream. See you later.